Welcome to the Supported Living Property Podcast with your host, me, Lisa Brown, the place to learn about supported living property investing. Hi Jean, it's great to have you here today. Thank you for coming along. For people who don't know you, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Thank you very much for the invitation. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm Jean Templeton, and I'm Chief Exec of an organisation that works in the West Midlands, the Basils. We work with young people that are homeless or at risk of homelessness in the West Midlands.
Wonderful. And it's really great to have you here today. And we're going to talk about a really exciting project that you've got set up. Tell us a little bit about the background to it, about the work that you guys do at St Basil's and the challenges that you've been facing.
Yeah. So Basils was set up in the late 60s, actually, late 68, and it became particularly focused. It was all about 16 to 25-year-old young people who kind of fell out of the system and ended up in homelessness. And it started off very much as that excluded youth organisation, and then I think very quickly in the early 70s recognised that a lot of it was related to actually young people were falling out and they had nowhere else to go. So started looking and working in terms of providing accommodation and homelessness, tackling homelessness, and we became a fully registered housing association in 2000, which was when I joined. And so we're a housing association and a charity. We have over 4,000 young people a year come to us. Our service delivery footprint is in the West Midlands, so we're not national or anything. We do some national work around National Youth Voice and some of the strategic, systemic pieces around tackling youth homelessness. But we've got, some nearly 800 bed spaces, 49 accommodation schemes. We run youth hubs in Birmingham, Solihull, Coventry, which is a single point of access for any young person that's homeless or at risk. And we have that whole kind of progression route. So young people have progression coaches. It's all about strengths-based approaches to enabling young people to really identify what's your skills, what's your talents, what's your strengths, what's your aspiration, and what's getting in the way of that. And how then can we work with you to help overcome what's getting in the way and making sure you can move on and do what you want to do with life. So
Brilliant.
That's the aspiration, really. That's what we're about. Yeah.
And working and supporting an awful lot of young people, at the moment. So as some of those people are already and not coming to you for a housing solution, they're coming to you for other things as well. But for some people, it's a mixture that you're offering.
Yeah, it's mainly the presenting issue. We try to get upstream as far as possible so that we can prevent homelessness. And a lot of the work that we're trying to do is to kind of work with other organisations, up in terms of in education or in employment or looking at health issues or with families or whatever, to try and prevent that tumbling out into homelessness. But when young people do present, because young people will try everything themselves to sort things out, whether it's with family, with friends, whatever, until you can't. And then what we need to do is we have our youth hubs to make it simple as possible. So a young person has one place to go, one place to contact, and then we wrap around, not just us, but collectively other services, statutory services as well, so that we make it simple as possible. Because the worst thing we want is young people kind of tumbling out of all the different silos and then, really in a bad way and being exploited or abused or whatever. So
absolutely. So having that joined up approach and bringing everyone together into one place, that sounds like a really good way of operating.
I think all the evidence that we have is that the more that we come together and simplify it for the young person, the more effective it's likely to be for them.
Wonderful. That sounds brilliant. From an accommodation point of view, what kind of accommodation is it that you offer, or how do you manage your accommodation services?
Yeah. So we have a whole range of accommodation from it's general. Most of it is supported accommodation. We do commissioned support. So we have emergency accommodation, which is immediate access and might be for say up to 3 months until you really assess what does that young person need. We have longer stay accommodation. We're Ofsted registered, so we can take 16 and 17-year-old care leavers. We have accommodation for young people that have more complex needs and issues and support requirements. We have a transitions service for young people that have been serially excluded. And again, that's multi-agency. It has psychologists, it has occupational therapists, it has, all sorts of drug and alcohol workers, everyone wrapping around that young person to really ensure that There's proper kind of in-depth, holistic assessment, which leads to formulation, which then leads to the next step. So moving from where lots of silos that young people kind of get moved around into us again coming together, but doing it over a period of time in a residential way. And then we have, step down accommodation and move on. And then our other scheme, which is one of the ones that we got talking about before, didn't we, was our live and work scheme. And that's really just trying to do for young people that don't have kind of family support, banker mom and dad, inverted commas, those additional resources, to say, like, how do we simplify and enable them to do apprenticeships or to work and have a housing offer that underpins that doesn't require them to double navigate two benefit systems and work and keep everything going, and then often one or other, sadly, falls off, either the job or the home. So
because the challenge that our young people have, for people who maybe aren't familiar with this system, is that on an apprenticeship you really can't afford, an apprenticeship will work if you can live at home still, won't it? But if you're not in a situation where you can live at home, then it's very, very hard to access an apprenticeship, isn't it?
It is. And I think obviously young people anyway have lowest benefit levels, lowest entry level work payment levels, lowest apprenticeship, everything is quite low, and is kind of almost within an expectation that there will be some other support there. And I think that's great if it is, but as you said, for many young people that's not the case. And so they do end up in a very complicated system, and sadly in some situations they end up in exempt supported accommodation where they actually get evicted if they get a job. So it's really about looking at, we started back in kind of 2012-13 thinking, how low would a rent have to be for a young person to do an apprenticeship and be able to pay their rent from their earned income without claiming benefit? And it's quite a shock how low that has to be. And then, okay, how do you make that stack up?
So how low does it need to be? Where does it need?
Tell me, what do you think then? What would you think? No,
I seem to remember that we talked about it, so I feel like I'm cheating.
Remember? Okay, 10 years ago. So 10 years ago we looked, and we looked really carefully, because obviously apprenticeship wages are quite low anyway, although one or two in some really good apprenticeships that are a wee bit more. But we worked out that back in 2013-14, rents could be no higher than £42 a week for a young person, and that actually included their energy costs.
So I can hear all the landlords listening to this going, there's no way I could make that work. I couldn't cover a mortgage cost. I could barely cover the insurance probably and the bills, let alone anything else with that. So that's such a challenge, isn't it? And that's a challenge you guys set yourselves to do.
That was kind of okay, right. And that's, it's exactly as you said before, that's why young people that can stay in a family home, that don't pay any rent, that kind of get help with keeping all the bills going. And sometimes if they're in construction, they might have to be on site early in the morning, and sometimes parents will get transport, all those sorts of things. It makes it work for them. But if that's not the case, and as a young person you don't have that support, then it is really challenging. So yes, we thought, right, okay, how can we get a scheme where we can have the rents at that level? So clearly, as you already mentioned, you're not going to borrow and develop on that basis. You couldn't service a mortgage or anything like that. So we had to have a debt-free scheme, and we started talking with Stanwell and West Birmingham NHS Trust, who were also interested because they wanted a younger, local, more diverse workforce. In terms of, that was one of their objectives. They also had buildings that had been boarded up for a lot of years, that had previously been workers' accommodation, doctors and nurses accommodation.
Right.
And because there used to be recognition, didn't there, that in some areas you did need accommodation nearby.
Yeah, absolutely. When I first qualified as a nurse, I got a place in the nurses' home. That's where I lived.
Yeah. That's kind of, I mean, I don't know how much of that is still there now, but you don't tend to see.
I don't think it's as much as there was. No.
So they had these buildings in Sandwell, and they, as I say, they've got their own objectives as well. So they had to go through a proper process because obviously it's a public asset. Anyway, long story short, they went through a process, put out a specification, we went for it and we secured it. And they leased one of 4 buildings to us for 10 years at peppercorn rent.
Right.
Now, clearly it had been empty for a very, very long time and boarded up. So there was quite a bit of work that needed doing. But we are a registered housing association. And so we went to what was then the Housing Corporation and said, OK, can we have some capital? And there was a particular fund, voluntary sector empty homes grant was the fund at the time. And we secured some funding from that. And then our development partner, construction partners, did the work at cost. Their supply chain did the work at cost.
Amazing. I can imagine all those conversations you were having, Jean, trying to get everyone to get on board.
Yeah, I'm making it sound really easy, but yeah. And then the NHS Trust managed to secure some funding from what was it? And you think it still exists? Health Education West Midlands, like it was another part of the system then, for supernumerary apprenticeships. So they could link those apprenticeships to young people that were going to be living in the accommodation and create that pathway. And obviously, as you know, you get an apprenticeship into the NHS and it opens up so many opportunities and things.
Yeah.
So, so that and a bit of charitable funding, all the rest. Anyway, opened by Prince William, actually, in 2014. And it was because the money we got wasn't huge. So the building was 9 4-bedroom flats. So they were like kind of student style flats. We kept that. We didn't remodel. We kept that and obviously brought it all up to standard, furnished. So it was like 4 young people can share kitchen, bathroom, but have their own rooms, their own fridges, furnished accommodation in there. Yeah, and it was let at £42 a week each. And
it's filled straight away, I imagine.
it was really interesting. So yeah, a lot of young people kind of went through in the early days those NHS apprenticeships, but then money, the kind of supernumerary money came to an end, and the process was a bit more challenging going through the normal apprenticeship process. So we broadened it out to any working young people that were homeless or at risk of homelessness. And the interesting thing is, in our youth hub, so we run the youth hub in Birmingham. So there's nearly 3,000, 3,000 young people a year in Birmingham present, and 17% of those are working at the point that they are at risk of homelessness. Wow. So again, if you can have an offer, a housing offer that enables them to keep that job, then obviously that's really helpful to them. So so we were able to broaden it out, young people doing all kind of different work in there. And, we're now, sort of 10 years on, and over 230 plus young people have lived in that scheme, and not a single one of them's claimed a penny benefit.
Wow.
All working. And, they work, they learn, because it's, they've got a common purpose. So have no antisocial behaviour. There is no, it's the lowest rent arrears of anywhere, because again, all young people are all there, they're all working, they're hungry, they're tired. They're doing things, they're looking after each other, they're
all got to get up for work in the morning, so they're not
even during COVID, when some of them were working from home, it was really they were really supportive of each other. We have on-site housing management, so we have someone on site, but again only during the day, and so evenings, weekends, we've obviously got call out, but it's just so young people just manage it really well. So yeah, we went back to the trust and said, these are the 3 buildings you've got.
They're still empty at this point, were they?
They were back in 2021. But then, bless them, the trust decided to lease the 3 other buildings to us for 30 years at Peppercorn.
Great.
And bring the first one into that 30-year piece. And we secured a lot more money in terms of both the local authority and also Homes England as it became, and converted those to 1-bedroom studio apartments. The rents are £75 a week for young workers.
All inclusive. That's built in everything.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to go on our website and puts in live and work, you'll see, what they look like. There's a little film, and we're still letting those now. They were completed earlier, back end of last year. So those are being occupied.
We'll put the links to that in the show notes so people can find it.
Yeah. So that kind of, sort of that model, and then, we're just about to complete an 80-unit scheme in city centre Birmingham. And again, that will just enable young people to sort of live and work, be benefit free, and, do all those things. And then we've got a very generous Building Society donor who has pledged £1 million, and which we will look to match fund to do a scheme in Coventry. Great. So, and it doesn't have to be us. It feels like it's like what we'd really like to see is just that part of a youth housing offer, just all elements. It's not instead of things, but just that whole kind of, what is it that we want to help people achieve? We want them to be able to go to college or go to do apprenticeships, move into work, and then be able to have a safe, genuinely affordable place, to live and work. And that's really all we're trying to do. And it saves the public purse massive amount over time.
Yeah.
So even the first one we did, we had some pro bono evaluation, which was really kind as well, of an organisation, and they worked out that for every pound that had gone into that first scheme, Apprentice House as it's called, there's a £14 return to the public purse over 10 years.
Wow.
And then you think beyond that, the intergenerational impacts of working young people, working families, like just enabling people to have that experience rather than feeling that they're, scared about leaving benefits or whatever.
And that's purely the economic benefits, yet alone the quality of life benefits, and the kind of like the avoiding trauma. We know lots of young people end up in such inappropriate housing, don't we, where it's unsafe, they get exposed to horrible things, avoiding all of that as well, the impact of that's phenomenal. It's such a great scheme, Jean. And like you say, it should be everywhere, shouldn't it, when we were talking about it? Why is this not everywhere?
I hope so. I mean, there's some of the legislation has obviously changed at the moment. So the renters rights bill will change things. And
will that make it difficult for you? Is that going to make things?
Basils, so Centrepoint have also got an independent living model, and they have that in London, and that's very similar principles for working young people. And I think probably some YMCAs have a Y living model as well. So what we collectively wanted to do was to make sure that was kind of protected within the new legislation, because it's not support ed housing, and support ed housing will be exempt from the kind of remove the renters' rights bill in relation to periodic long-term tenancies, but this is not support ed. But again, working with government MHCRG, we've been able to draft an amendment into the bill that would protect what we are collectively calling stepping stone accommodation.
Right, that's a good idea. Yeah. So how will that protect you? It'll protect you from a tenancy point of view, will it?
Well, what if you're going to have those deflated rents? You want young people, or if they do schemes, it's not just necessarily for young people, but you don't want people to say, right, thank you very much, I'm going to stay there for the rest of my days, because that's at this low rent.
Yeah,
that's preventing someone else having that opportunity. So it's about up to the definitions we've put in, up to kind of 3 years, and sort of related to work, but not specific work, all of that. So just to make sure that there is that kind of opportunity that is there continually for those who need it. And then, as I say, most people don't necessarily stay till the end of that period anyway, because they've saved up and they're able to choose what they want to do and where to live. And some, move on and rent privately. In our phase one, the largest proportion of young people did not even want to go into social housing, because they had the means by which they could choose what kind of accommodation, where they wanted to live, and with whom. So it just, all we're trying to do, Lisa, is just kind of ensure that things that work for some young people, that have the family support, the resources, the networks, and everything else, if that works, let's just make that work for everyone. Let's just provide the same kind of opportunities.
Yeah.
So that's that's what we'd like to see as part of National Youth Housing Offer. That'd be good.
Brilliant. Well, let's hope so. Some people are listening from other areas who are thinking, oh, let's see how we can make this work in their areas. So, it's thank you, Jean, for coming on and explaining how you've done it. It's such a great project, and for being such a, for putting in the legwork to get the first one off the ground, because that can't have been easy to do that. But like you said, once you've got that model up in place, now you've been offered more funding because you can demonstrate, the successes of it. So thank you so much. I'll put the links in the show notes so people can read more about it if they want to, Jean. And thank you so much for your time coming on today. Thank you.
No, thanks, Lisa. It's been a real pleasure. Yeah, let's hope that we can encourage others to.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you're finding this content useful, then maybe it's time you join the Supported Living Property Network. If you're not already a member, then let me explain what's included. The network is a unique community of property investors and providers coming together to create quality supported living homes. If you're a property investor, you can list property on our portal for our provider members to see. You can access the demand portal where our providers list where they need property, so you can buy property to order. If you're a provider, you can access the property portal to see where our members have property available for you to lease, and you can list where you need property. We do not charge any additional introduction or sourcing fees. You also get access to our monthly training sessions with industry experts to help you understand supported living property and keep up to date. You get access to our monthly online networking sessions to help you connect with property investors and providers. I've written 2 training courses, one for providers and one for property investors, to help you get started in supported living property. We have a membership area filled with resources that you need, where you can watch the previous training sessions too. You get all of this for only £47.50 plus VAT a month. And because we do not want you to stay unless you think it's incredible value, you can leave at any time. Just give us 14 days notice. Simply go to www.supportedlivingproperty.uk. That's www.supportedlivingproperty.uk to join us now.